Hello, everyone. Welcome to our bi-weekly DevSync, where we discuss what the developers have been working on over the last couple weeks, what we plan on doing over the next couple, and some general ecosystem updates as well. To start off, some kind of wider communication and announcements. First, I guess since the last DevSync, we did have leadership offsite, so that was great. We spent a lot of time solidifying many things that will be upcoming, such as the Subspace primer that will be hopefully released to the general public here in the next few weeks, outlining kind of the direction that we'll be going. More current, we'll be hoping to get Gemini 3F launched by the end of the week. It's a bit aggressive. We still need some work done on the DSN. As many in the community know, it's been farming hasn't worked with the what we call the advanced CLI. We're working diligently to get that fixed. If we get a fix in by midweek, it's potentially we'll have Gemini 3F by the end of the week. We'll be also launching some internal dev nets, looking to test many of the different aspects we've been working on. We were kind of transition here to project highlights from the last couple of weeks. We've got quite a few. So why don't we start with Nazar on the Chia proof of storage improvements you've been
Proof of space.
Sorry, proof of
Yeah.
space. I put in POS and I was like, oh, it's not proof of stake. At least I got storage.
Yeah. I usually write POS space, so
Yeah,
it's clear.
that's right. Yeah.
It's different.
POS, I immediately think stake.
Yeah.
Threw me off.
So we are using Chia proof of space as one of the components on the protocol. It's not the same purpose, but we essentially use it as memory hard hash function kind of thing. The challenge initially was to get it working fast enough with the K17, which is kind of a size of the table 2 to the power of 17 entries. And then we decided that we actually need more. And I was working on performance improvements to get to the higher target. On my powerful machine, I can already farm with K22. It's not feasible on most machines, but that's kind of the performance we are targeting. And once we have proof of time and we have a prediction window for randomness, that should be sufficient performance to actually increase K. The challenge right now that we are discussing on the research forum is that the loading time is about 32 times slower. That's the difference between K17 and K22. 2 to the power of 5 is 32. And we're exploring ways how we can mitigate that, because otherwise it will be something like 0.5 megabytes per second plotting speed, which is not great. So yeah, a lot of progress done there. All of that is merged in main branch. You can go to research forum to see the discussion. And yeah, hopefully we'll have those things live on Gemini soon.
Just to save me doing the math in my head, what's the at K22, what's the time roughly to do a terabyte? Or do you have that math already in your head?
I was calculating, it was looking something like a week on my machine. It's something like 3 weeks or more than 3 weeks, like maybe a month with like overhead and everything on the quad core machine, which is very far from our target.
Yes.
Ideally, we would plot it in a day. That's why we're discussing how we can close that gap.
Great. All right. On the execution side, there's been a lot of progress as well. Ved, do you want to kind of give an update of where we are on what we call the domain's happy path, so pre-fraud proof?
Yeah. So over the last 2 weeks, mostly working on the domain's happy path. Like what we call happy path is with anything without fraud proofs, because of fraud proofs were yet to be specified at that point. So we have most of the happy path done, actually all of it. There's just one PR left, and post that we are good to go on DevNet, at least on the happy path side. So we'll be able to, the domains would be running at that point, like the chain would be running. The next steps would be for us to start working on the fraud proofs, and then Also, a few more smaller items, farmers rewards, auto staking, and anything that comes up after would be mostly focused on, while we continue to test the DevNet and maybe do a runtime upgrade without having to reset it to just test it out. But uh, that's pretty much.
Another goal would be to have, I think, the EVM domain launched with Gemini 3F, which will be, I know, great for Jim and his team, as having a live EVM within the Subspace network is kind of a blocker for some of the documentation and testing and such. So to that end, actually, Jim, do you mind kind of giving an update? Another major thing you've been working on, I know, is designing a staking game for when we do have our incentivized testnet coming up. Do you mind?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we know we've got the staking game planned. We need to get incentivized testnet up on its feet first, but we're kind of working out the mechanics. So I've just dropped a link in the chat. It's very early stage. So we're trying to work out the prizes, who's allowed to join, who can join while we're in play, as it were, and exactly how the intricacies of how we are going to execute the staking game. What's the goal? It would be wonderful. I know Ved's been through and provided some great feedback. It'd be great if anyone who understands domains, which would be everyone on this call, understand them better than me, if they could drop any comments or direction they may have in the chat. Not sure how deep you want to go at this stage, Jeremy. I mean, really what we're kind of working out is things like minimum stake, how we're going to rank people, and kind of what the goals are going to be. So yeah, if anyone's got any input or wants to give us some direction, feel free to add the comments into Notion. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. I think it's worth highlighting the fact that we're spending time right now thinking about this does mean that we have a vision for a incentivized testnet in the near future. So anybody who's been waiting for that, it is on the horizon. So which is pretty exciting stuff. All right, and Natasha, I know you've had some frustrating progress with maybe the block explorer and on the squid side on the substrate. So I don't know if you want to give an update on that. I think I may have seen something in chat today, but also if you've gotten any information on the EVM block explorer as well that we've been researching, that would be
Yeah,
great.
definitely. Yeah, it's been really difficult with Gemini 3E for bringing together the indexer. Because we have, for the block explorer, we have first one indexer, then a processor that manage the data, so it looks good for the block explorer, and then it reach the application. So our issue is with the indexer, the first step, that we cannot index data from Gemini 3E right now. We were figuring out different approaches. I work together with Muhammad in this issue, and we were testing different approaches in order to find a solution. But then when we reached a blocking point that we couldn't do anything else, we reached the SoSquid team. The SoSquid team responded today that the first issue is that our block zero is huge. So it generates problem when we intend to index it. So for now, for these 2 weeks, what I will try is to reach out to the protocol team. So if we can figure out a solution for this, and also regarding our EVN for Block Explorer using Block Scout, I had a meeting with Muhammad last week regarding this project because he has experience putting this together, and he helped a lot understanding the changes that I need to do to this project in order to make it work. And I started putting it together locally, and we are currently for this period we are currently looking forward to deploy our fixed block scout um, site using Gemini 3D EVM because as far as I know we don't have the Gemini 3E EVM available right now, so we're gonna do it with the Gemini 3D. So yeah, that's pretty much. Also today, Muhammad reached to me that our current block explorer is sinking really slow. So I'm figuring that out because a couple of months ago we reduced the amount of blocks that we index because we were getting an issue with a higher number. So currently I'm testing locally to see if it doesn't break. If so, we will make those changes to the ones that are in production so we can have a higher speed indexing for the Block Explorer. That's it for me.
Okay. Great.
I have
Do
a
you think the
small
speed?
question
Oh, go.
about indexing speed. About speed, is it speed of indexing or is it speed of the node sync? Because if it's a node sync, we can like probably do something about it.
Yeah, it's not the no sync because the indexer is indexing like a good amount. The problem is that the processor will reduce the amount of blocks that it processes. Sorry, I made a mistake doing that. But yeah, the amount of blocks that it was processing is like 50 or something right now. And it's getting way behind of the indexer. So what we're gonna do, what I'm currently doing is testing locally that it can process a higher amount without issues. And then if it doesn't break in a couple of hours, I will reach a test on the blue environment before getting into production.
So, so is
Makes
the
sense?
so it's not at the indexer level or the archiver. It's at the processor.
At the
So that was,
processor, yeah.
and you're doing when you say 50, is that the batch size?
That's the size that we reduced it when we reached the issue a couple of months ago. So currently I'm testing with 200 locally,
Okay.
and so far it doesn't it hasn't given me an issue, but I will wait a couple hours more just to make sure.
Okay. If you
Can
continue, no, go ahead. Go ahead,
I have
Najee.
another question. Can you maybe hint at what that 200 is measured in? Like, is it 200 blocks?
Yeah,
And if
200 blocks.
okay, but then what is happening to those blocks? Like, are they processed in a batch, like Jeremy asked, like, or why is that number even a thing? Like, what does it influence?
Right now, because when we index the number of blocks in the indexer, in the processor side, we were processing the data so it's more readable to the front end, and in that part is processing 50 blocks per second or something like that. But then it reached a point that Muhammad pinged out to me that is currently way behind the indexer. So it looks like our block explorer in the side looks like it's behind like by days right now. So it's not correct. And we want to make sure that maybe minutes or something like that, but not so behind.
So I think the answer, Nazar, is that it is the batch size. Yeah, so that's what they can do in parallel. So like I'll grab 50
Okay, but
blocks with 200.
we don't produce 50 blocks per second on our
Yeah.
blockchain. So is it just when it starts?
Yeah, so it's just in catching up. So if
Mhm.
you're,
I see.
so
Yes.
it starts off, behind. So the archiver archives, and then you use the archiver to catch up. And if you get, usually it means there's bigger blocks or something, or more
Yeah, that's what I was
transactions or
hinting
something
at. Like
happening. Yeah.
if you assume that blocks are smaller now, that will not always be the case. So maybe
then,
that like limit should be dynamic or something.
and I think Subsquid had been working on ways to make that limit dynamic, because it's a real pain to like have to stop and then like change the limit to 50, because now things have blocks are bigger, and then it times out. But also there's ways that, like, there may be just something in the processor that could be optimized. Natasha, I do have experience with this, so if you get stuck, I know that was something Serge was working on before. So if you need any help, feel free to ping me, and I can maybe jump on a call with you and see if there's something, or I can take a look. So
yeah, thank you.
did I see, Nazar, you had a comment that this, were you referring to the block size, the Genesis block?
Yeah, that's something that was fixed over the last 2 weeks. Basically, what we were doing in the past, we were taking the very first Genesis block, and we have modified the function which creates that block in Substrate. And what we did, we actually placed a bit of data in the header, and that way our first block is big enough to produce a segment, such that we fix this like chicken and egg problem, how we kickstart the chain when we don't have history. What happened after that is in consensus v2, we have bigger pieces. Suddenly our header is 128 megabytes, which is insane for Substrate. And that's what breaks all of the RPCs, which are not supposed to handle so much data. And especially bad because it's in the header. So even header is not possible to download. And we fixed that recently in one of the pull requests where the blockchain is the same as it was. We just modified the encoding when we produce the first segment. So we kind of sidestep that problem. So on the DevNet, when we launch it, and on Next Gemini, it should not be a problem anymore.
So long story short, there is, I guess we won't be able to have a squid for Gemini 3E. So, but we will for DevNets and 3F.
One more reason to have DevNet sooner.
Yes. Great. Well, that was all I had. Is there anything anybody else wanted to bring up while we got the whole team here? All right. Well, we will see everybody back in 2 weeks. Thank you for watching.